everything is seen and that I hear about polyamory and practice should be in all aspects of our life. We shouldn't just be at the dinner table talking only about sex, but about everything. And
Yeah.
sure, maybe some people are and it's about politics, but what about your vulnerability? I
Hmm.
mean, how deep can you get with your grandfather?
Yeah.
How open can you be with your neighbor? So in all aspects, not just human sexuality, but what you believe. Can a Christian sit down with a atheist
Yeah.
and have a beautiful conversation without hating each other
Yeah.
and go on about their days, still respecting each other unconditionally?
Hmm.
That is what I find important, and have it radiate through all aspects of life, not just human sexuality.
Welcome to the Power Plant Body Podcast. My name is Taylor, and this show is focused on self-development. I found in my own life, as well as the lives of my clients that I've worked with, that it's human nature to focus on goals in one area of life, or maybe two areas of your life if you're lucky, to the detriment of the other areas of your life. For this reason, there's a tool that I use with my clients called the Goal Wheel that is specifically designed to shed light on how you might be preventing yourself from living the fullest life possible. In a nutshell, the goal wheel is a circle drawn on a piece of paper that's being divided into 8 quadrants. The 8 quadrants are family and friends, romance, fun and recreation, health and fitness, finances, personal growth and spirituality, career, and physical environment. Basically, you give yourself a score between 1 and 10 for each of these areas of your life, and that allows you to see where you're excelling and putting your attention. But it also shows you the areas of your life that you're currently neglecting. The areas of life that we neglect are often the areas that we need to work on the most. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, to share insights from teachers who are experts in one or more of these areas of the goal wheel. Each interview is meant to inspire you to take action in one of those areas so that you can live a more fulfilled and balanced life. To get your hands on a free copy of the Goal Wheel PDF so that you can use it to create meaningful goals and take steps to achieve them, head over to powerplantbody.com/free-tools. You'll find a bunch of other free tools and resources there as well. You know those people you meet in life that are so full of positive energy that they conduct a feeling of happiness to everyone they meet? You know those people who seem to have a presence that lights up a room because they're overflowing with unconditional love, just looking for a way to get out and connect? Well, my guest today is that person. Channing is one of the loveliest human beings that I've ever had the chance to meet, however brief that meeting was. I met her almost 5 years ago when I was in Los Angeles and just about to head back to live in Canada. And she was a friend of a friend, but as I said, she's the type of person who just skips all that superficial nonsense and makes a beeline for a deeper connection. My conversation today with Channing is about relationships and sexuality. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone more passionate about helping people connect in meaningful, vulnerable, and loving ways than Channing. Channing is currently in school working on her master's in psychology with the intention of building a practice as a sexologist. She wants to help couples navigate their relationships as they explore the dynamics of sexual expression. I'm super grateful to Channing for being so open and sharing her insights into sexuality, as we're still living through times where a lot of this is taboo. In her words, Channing hopes that one day conversations like the ones that we had today will be normalized so that people are free to express them authentically without their fear of embarrassment or prejudice. Channing is an open book, and she shares a vulnerable story that is full of powerful insights that we could all use in our own relationships, romantic or otherwise. Also, full disclosure, we had to switch to Zoom because our original software wasn't working for her. Also, full disclosure, we had to switch over to Zoom because our original conversation. Also, full disclosure, we had to switch over to Zoom because our original software wasn't working on her phone. During the switch, I again forgot to change over my microphone, so the first few minutes I sound very distant. My apologies, but I quickly remembered and I changed back, so if you can make it through the first few minutes, then it will eventually sound normal. Again, I had such a wonderful time talking to Channing, and I know that you'll love it as well, so without any further delay, I bring you my conversation with Channing Clemons. All right, Channing. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and yeah, I'd invite you to just open up about who you are and what you're doing in school right now and the direction you're headed.
Okay. I'm not sure when exactly I found my passion for human sexuality. It's almost as though it was dropped into my hands. And it was probably within college. I started out as a business major and graduated with an associate's in business administration. Wasn't happy with what I was doing, but continued to go to school. And I had a general education course to fill, and I chose a human sexuality class. There, I met Professor Karen Iso and my other professor who also did human sexuality in my junior college. But those two women set off a path that was more defined for me. And I'm incredibly grateful for these women. They're truly themselves, the epitome of just being present, and they're exuding of sexuality. It was super rad. So what I didn't know was, as I began to post about human sexuality through my social media, I had a couple elementary friends. They made comments saying, do you remember in elementary school, you used to gather us around the playground and we would talk about human sexuality? And at that time, what do you mean elementary student? Like who did I think I was? But I remembered that, and it blew my mind because it took me back to possibly, that's maybe, I don't know why I came here to do this type of stuff, because it's definitely a passion I'm unsure to get away from, for one, but also why did it become so important to me? And as I began to dig deeper, I just want to help people. I want people to understand their sexuality. I want people to know what makes them tick. And by saying I want them to know, I just want to be that guidance, because clearly I'm not the key. I'm not anybody's key. Only they themselves are their own key to figure out what it is they need to do on this planet during this very short time. So if I could be guidance, if I could be something that can motivate somebody or uplift them or just give them a little spark, plant a seed, that's what I would want to do, would love to do, and hope that I am doing with this path of mine. So, and I'm really grateful because I have had the chance to hear some very intimate stories from people. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm just as open about human sexuality and vulnerable with it. I am very grateful, though, that I've had those chances. So I just want to keep going with it. And I currently hold a bachelor's in psychology. I'm working toward my master's. I would love to have a PhD one day, become a professor potentially. Opening my own practice is definitely my goal. I want to help couples, but also dig into ethically non-monogamous relationships, which is polyamory, being open, swinging, all sorts of different dynamics than just monogamy. So if my practice when my practice comes about, I want it to incorporate mindfulness, positive psychology, yoga, tantra, all sorts of fun stuff that's typically not found in therapeutic sessions. And whether it be me just working with couples or people that are open, swinging, I'd want to be all encompassing. I'm gonna need help. So if I can have other psychologists join me or do like a biopsychosocial thing, that would be amazing. So just a little bit of background of myself.
That's awesome. So this goes a long way back, all the way to elementary school, as you said. You started pursuing a business degree and eventually got into psychology. And as you said before we started the interview, you want to work towards sexology, right? So sexology is a degree. Is that right?
So it's still in its infancy as a study, right. And it's an interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
But the title would be sexologist, which is just the study of sex.
Yeah.
So a degree right now, from my understanding, it's a certificate.
Yeah. So there's so many questions that come up because from how you speak about it, there's three things that come up to mind. How you speak about it, there's this draw towards something that we're more open to it now than we have been, in the last 100 years or so. But there's still like an air taboo about a lot of things that have to do with sex, right? Sexuality. I'd be interested to learn how that's come up for you through this process. But maybe before we go there, when I hear the sexologist or the study of sex, I think of like the mechanics of sex, right? Like
moving bodies together. But the way you describe it and the way you describe sexology and the passion that I can hear in your voice when you talk about connection and relationships, that's a part of it. That's the mechanical process, but there's something more going on. So how would you begin to describe that, and what's the allure for you?
Oh, there's so many layers, and trying to use words, I've noticed, waters the human experience down greatly. The mechanics are one aspect of it. There's the intimacy, there's the sensuality, there's the energetic side of it. There's so much about it. And so are you asking me how I was drawn to it, how I was allured to it?
Yeah, well, I think in that question too is you were drawn by something, right? Something continues to draw. I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your face when you talk about it.
Okay.
So there's something about it that's drawing you. What is that? What is the, that's...
what's that passion?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think because, and again, it's almost unanswerable in a very mystic, strange way. It's the wanting to help people. And because it's incredibly understudied and it's not talked about. I've always said there's almost 9 billion people, and we're not sitting around having tea and coffee. Like, we're having sex. The population is growing at a crazy rate, but yet no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to sit down and have these incredibly intimate and serious conversations that should be had always. Just as we eat at the dinner, we should have them at the dinner table. That's our most intimate and social gathering. Let's talk about it. So it's the passion of wanting to expand and take away the fear and give the conversation power, healthy power, and not just having it when children become of age or when there's issues. It needs to be had all the time. And I hope to bring that. Obviously, I'm one person, but what I'm hoping is that it'll domino effect, and those after me or who walk with me can expand that and take a baby step all the way.
Love it.
Helping us have constructive, meaningful conversations, bringing it out of the shadows is a big part of that for you. What do you think it is about sex that makes it so taboo, or makes it so that we don't communicate and talk about it the way that we probably should, and the way that you'd like us to see, us talk about it?
It's just how everyone was raised. We came from Puritans. This goes back, and based off of religion, there's a lot of things within religion that keep people from speaking about it, and just it being taboo, especially Western society. Europe is much different from us, and people are allowed to be, nude beaches and enjoy being in their skin without having to fear criticism, judgment, or inappropriate acts. So not only does it affect the conversation is affected by where we live, but also our past through religion, through biases based on race and ethnicity. And there's again, a lot of layers as to why we are having difficulties having these conversations. School, the politics, why can't we teach our children certain things? A lot of kids can't name their body parts. Sure, why may that be important? It becomes important eventually. So why not teach them at a younger age where it's not scary? And as adults, we have these ideas where we don't want to teach kids because there's this innocence. Children don't have that idea yet. They just take what we teach them. So if we are coming up to them, trying to teach them about human sexuality, and they feel our hesitancy, they feel our fear of talking about it with them, they're going to take that in and realize, okay, this must not be a subject we're supposed to be talking about. And I mean, and some research articles state that children masturbate, of course, without the idea of it being sexual. It's that correlation isn't there. It's just the idea of pleasure. It feels good. Masturbate as young as 1 to 2. And I guess I shouldn't say masturbation, but just touching their bodies and exploring themselves. Infants have erections, not because they're horny, but just because biologically, oxygen needs to get to their penis. Morning wood, that's the purpose of morning wood. Men get 40 to 45 erections throughout their sleep because it's re-oxygenating the penis. There's so many things that we should be learning, just because it's health and not necessarily, oh, it's sexual. It's health. And there are kids who don't know how to pull their foreskin back when they're really young, or there are kids who don't know that their vulva is actually a vagina. And I'm sorry, that their vagina is a vulva, that the vaginal canal is something that we've told people with vaginas, it's a vulva, the whole thing. That's, there's just a lot of things. So again, baby steps to hopefully change that.
Yeah.
So the constraints are all there, unfortunately. Just you have to take them apart, weave them out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think about today's generation too. My generation, we just got the internet, when I was going through adolescence. I remember specifically one of my friends had the fastest internet connection, and us as like 12-year-old boys would go over to his house and like find, I can't remember what her name was, but some girl that was like the most downloaded girl at the time. And we would like print out pictures of her topless. And it would take, it was
exciting.
The internet. The internet was so slow that it like the picture would load and it would be like little bar. Yeah. And then it'd take another career to print, but we finally have this black and white picture of a girl topless. But I think about kids, I think about kids today, and if we repress sexuality when kids are starting to realize that there's something there, like there's an urge and they can't name it, then it makes sense that the place that they'll start looking is the internet. And the internet's version of sexuality can really mislead kids as they're growing up into adults. How do you, is there such thing as like a healthy, can pornography be healthy? And if it can, how does it fit in? Where do you stand on that side of things?
So porno, another sticky topic. A lot that's been coming out recently is that the porn you may be watching may not be consensual. It may have been recorded secretly. It may have been recorded with underage people. So currently, I could stand where any porn is bad because you don't know the people who are in it and what their story is. Do I think porn can be healthy? Yes. There is actually a couple that I follow. They're called Kate and Marley. And seeing them make love, and however they decide what that lovemaking looks like, but a majority of their videos are incredibly slow. They're very quiet, where porn is fast-paced, rough, loud, very theatrical. And theirs is, it's very different. It's not the porn you see. So I do believe that porn can be healthy. Again, just where is it coming from? What is the content based? Because sex, again, is such a spectrum. So BDSM, where it's consensual violence or consensual non-consent. And there's just such a spectrum of things where you have to be sure what you're watching is consented to. It's just getting to the point of how does that become regulated? How can it become safe? And what exactly are the internet providers or the hosts, say Pornhub or PornMD, what are they going to do to be sure the content that's being posted on their website is safe? So I do believe that there can be a balance with something watched, and that it can be healthy, as anything, with moderation and being sure and present that what you're consuming will be good for you. And I mean, anything can become an addiction. So it's just being aware of what you're doing and what you're consuming.
That's been a really a big eye opener, I think, in the last couple of years, kind of figuring out that, like, as you say, a lot of this isn't consensual, or there are people that they don't know that they're being videotaped. I was a part of a men's group for a number of years, and pornography use, the benefits and the cons, is something that we talked about on a fairly regular basis. And I remember about just over a year ago, I decided to just cut it completely out of my life. And I'm very much in the same camp as you. Like, I don't see it as a good or a bad thing. It's like the intention behind it, and also who's affected on the other end. But I can say for like my own experience of what it was like to have it in my life and what it's like now to not have it in my life. I kind of looked at porn use and masturbation as like, it was a tool to get from A to B. A was, I was horny, and B was, I'm done. I can either go to sleep or get on with whatever I wanted to do, but I was too horny to do it, or, yes. Or also and this didn't show up as much for me, but it showed up for some of my friends, that it can also be a tool for procrastination. So if you have to do something, maybe you have to type you're doing a book or like a project at work, and like, that you should be doing the project, but you're like, oh, maybe I could, watch some porno. Do something else instead. And, but on the other end of that, that's a long-winded way of saying this, which is, since cutting it out, I've noticed in myself, one, I'm more present with my own body. Like, I didn't even realize that there was an awareness with that. But two, my like relationship with sex with a person on like a in real life scenario is way more. It's deeper, and it's more in the moment rather than. I didn't realize at the time, but there's some connection with what I've seen probably only a few hours previous on a device somewhere, and how they were doing things and how we're doing things now. It's just, I don't know how exactly to contextualize, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yes. You've found a preferable way that makes you feel healthier, present, happier.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Consensualness in the porno industry, that actually reminded me of something that we were talking about previously, which is this, the traditional relationship is monogamous, right? Traditional, or as what we think of as, at least in recent traditional relationships, are monogamous. Polyamory or open relationships or swinging is it getting more light, and more people are becoming open to it. A big part of that is, of course, consent as well. How I know that it's been a part of your life. Actually, you're the person who, when I was in California, I don't want to take any more time here, but just a short story. When I was in California,
okay, please.
When I was in California, well, when I was in California, and I the last time I saw you and Pat in 2016, and then I left shortly thereafter. And I think you guys and some other people at the time too introduced me to this idea of polyamory, which I had never heard before in my life. But shortly thereafter, I met a whole bunch of other people that were also talking about it and telling me all about it and whatnot. So it's just
like,
kind
what the hell?
Yeah. I was learning more and more about it in a very short time during that time of my life. Anyways, so polyamory, what is it? Or open relationships, what are they? Consent plays a big role in that. And what role does it play in your life?
So polyamory, it's allowing yourself and your partners to pursue experiences and romances outside of the original partner or the self. And it's done consensually. It's done with honesty, transparency, because it's all needed for sexual safety, for safety of your own emotions from being hurt, which is difficult, because as I am learning, you can read and learn about it all you want, but until it's experienced and you're actually placed in shoes in which things become difficult, you really have to just experience it to learn. And so polyamory and open relationships, depending on who you're talking to, for me, they differ in that open relationships are just typically physical, which would be swinging and enjoying other people's bodies, while polyamory is poly, many, amory, loves. getting deeply connected romantically and loving the person that you're being with outside of your partner.
Right.
And polyamory can range from so many different dynamics, from triads to quads to W's. It's like an alphabet of what people connect with who. It's a web, which is really awesome because it shows the complexity of relationships, that there doesn't have to be one particular way. It's the way that fits you. And how you find that out is by discovering and exploring, experimenting. I was told by somebody, you don't know where your boundary is until it's crossed. So cross those lines until you feel, okay, that's not for me. And this is where my boundary is. Again, reading and learning about all kinds of stuff is so much more different than experiencing it. I'm currently, the reason I had started the video, our first one was my life is in chaos right now, which is not, it's just very emotionally dense, is because I am with a 9-year partner. And I recently met another gentleman, and we've been enjoying each other for about 4 months now. The 4-month partner I met feels like I've known him lifetimes before. It's crazy. The thing is, my 9-year partner, he was going through a lot of difficulties of his own. And so, yes, he knew about this new male. I just did not give him, I became dishonest because I wanted to protect his feelings due to his current surrounding circumstances, which was COVID. He had not stepped out of his house since March of 2020. He wanted to be very safe to protect his parents. And he also had a vulnerable grandparent with underlying conditions of COPD, amongst others. And so I understood I had to respect his space. And I stayed connected with him through FaceTime or dropping things off at his place and reaching out as best I could. So as months began to pass, I decided to begin exploring, going camping by myself, going and visiting places on my own. And in October, I went camping and I met somebody, and I didn't think it were to go anywhere, and it did. So going back to my 9-year partner, due to being isolated for so incredibly long, and then his grandfather actually catching COVID and dying.
Oh my goodness.
And then he himself catching COVID along with his 2 parents, to then having to isolate further due to being exposed. He had a very tumultuous year experience within just losing his family, losing time that he could have spent doing other things. And his main goal was to protect his grandfather, and he lost him anyways. So with all that going on, I let him know about my new partner, my new potential partner, which is my new partner now. And I didn't give too many details because I felt guilty for having fun while he was suffering. And that's not an excuse. I know that now, but I had to experience it, although I knew it, to finally realize that. And I cannot tell you how much talking I have done. I cannot tell you between the two of them. I can't tell you how much I have cried and the emotions and the intense waves of just wanting to give up. And I don't want to play a victim either. Like we've talked about so many things, to the point where things are getting better. They're not perfect. And I feel terrible because my 4-month partner, he's new to all of this. He has no idea what polyamory is. He met me, I told him about it, and we just went from there. And so he's kind of getting a rough start to the love style. So I'm doing my best to stay honest, because my dishonesty got me in a lot of trouble. And it was due to my fear of losing both of my partners, my fear of being rejected, my fear of hurting them. And again, that doesn't matter. I need to be honest because it gives the other person the free will to decide whether or not they still want to share space with me. And that's part of polyamory. You need to give that person, if you, for whatever reason, anything, that should be within monogamy as well. You have to communicate with your partner so they can choose whether or not that path is what they want to continue with you. So I'm learning a lot of lessons physically and experientially instead of having read everything that I read and learned off of articles. And it's been a wild ride, but I'm really grateful because without this, how would I be? Because I also want to be a therapist for E&M, the ethically non-monogamous couples. And who am I if I don't experience something so intense, but give advice to people? So as difficult as this situation has been, I'm incredibly grateful because we're all growing at the same time. And my tangent threw me off from your question, but being polyamorous is work. Like any relationship, monogamy is work. And the pillars are communication, transparency, honesty, respect, love, which in my opinion should be in any relationship, even if you're just open, just human to human, have those qualities. But yeah, so remembering it, there are so many different dynamics, and being polyamorous is different from being open, is different from swinging, is different from asexuality. And there's multiple reasons to be polyamorous. One story I read it was a person who was paralyzed from the waist down, and they couldn't have sexual intercourse, but yet they were so incredibly in love with their partner who was capable of having intercourse, and they allowed their partner to experience pleasure and love from another being. So it's not just about, it's not at all about coveting people or wanting to sleep around. It's much more than that. And trying to explain it to people who have no idea of this love style think you're crazy. Like, yeah, you're just confused, or you're afraid of commitment, or you haven't met the one, you're not in love. There are so many things. There are so many things that people misunderstand about being ethically non-monogamous. But I am very happy that it's starting to grow, and that people are asking questions, and that there are others that are practicing it. And it's very enriching. Your emotional intelligence definitely grows. Your empathy grows. You're kind of forced to, in a way, I'd say, because you're committing to so many people. You have to see all sides. You have to be able to understand each being and why they feel what they feel. And it's really beautiful. I'm passionate about it. I understand it's not for everybody, because monogamy is its own beautiful love style. I just want to have a path for those who want to love differently and do it in a healthy manner that's safe and full of kindness. I'm a hippie, I don't know. So, yeah.
That's great. Like you said, there's so much to non-monogamy and polyamory that regardless of whether you decide to practice the lifestyle or practice that pursuit, I should say, I don't know if you'd call it a lifestyle, but
I call it love style.
Love style. There you are. That's perfect. Regardless of whether or not you want to practice that love style, there's so much in what you just shared that conventional monogamous relationships would benefit from. And and before, so there's something I wanted to mention from my own experience. But I had a guy on a little while ago named Rainier Wild, and he on his own podcast said something that I love, which relates to what you just shared about you wanting to be a sexologist and someone who helps non-monogamous couples get through some of the troubles. And what would you be if you didn't have those troubles yourself? He said. He said something to the effect of he would prefer 1,000 times over to hear from a wounded healer as someone who, has gone through life without any struggle or strife,
Yes.
When I met with you the last time in California, we went down to Santa Monica and it was a beautiful day, and I saw you and Pat down there. And then I think that was like a week before I left. But when I got back, as I said, I met a whole bunch of people in the polyamorous community. And I also came across, and it was right after actually I read Yuval Noah's book, Sapiens. And then directly after that, Sex at Dawn landed in my in my, in my lap. And then right after that, I met all these people in the polyamory, in the world. And I was like, oh, well, something's happening here,
Yes, universe.
Yeah. What are you trying to tell me here? And, so everything that you mentioned about your relationships, the trust, the openness, the EQ, like the empathy that you gain for people, and the better understanding of yourself, like all of that was just this massive magnet for me. I was drawn to it. And I dipped my toes into it. And I really, like, when I say dip my toes into it, I mean, just the tip of my toe. And the reason why I pulled back, I'm still very much open to the idea of it for possibly in the future. The reason why I pulled back is because I realized for me personally, that I went into it for the wrong reasons, because I went into it, I thought that I was going into it to, as you say, like polyamory, multiple loves. And when I started to dip my toe into it, I realized that I was doing it from a very selfish direction, which was I was trying to destroy my ego or challenge my ego. I was trying to move into a place where I could prove to myself that I could be not attached emotionally, not attached emotionally, because I still wanted to engage emotionally, but how can I put this? Like, the thing I love about my ideal relationship is one where neither of you feel compelled to control the other person. You're not fearful of, what they're doing when you're not together, that sort of thing. Like, trust is a big thing, right? And so when I started to dip my toe into it, I think that's the thing that I realized about myself, was I was doing it from a selfish place. It was about me and dissolving my ego. It wasn't about experiencing these multiple people. The reason why I bring that up is because I think, well, from your perspective, from like the feminine energy or the female perspective versus the masculine energy or the male perspective, I know that those, the feminine energy and the masculine energy can show up regardless of what your genitals look like. But I mean, when you think about those two perspectives, do you find that it's easier for one than the other? And if so, what do you think the reasons are behind that?
So these are just my words. But also anyone could say it's easier for, oh, maybe not. Maybe I just switched into, no, it's equality. It is easier for women. It's easier for women to find willing men participants within open relationships. And I say that because see, that's difficult to even talk about now, since I feel like I've taken away that view, because both sides have to be available in order for one to work. But I think women are able to find more willing men participants than it is for a man to come up to a woman who had no idea about open relationships and be like, hey, do you want to be one of my peoples? Here's also Rebecca, Caitlin, and Chelsea. That would be, no, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
And so it's definitely easier currently. I'm hoping those things would change, because hopefully ideas about this love style change. It is easier for one person, one gender over the other. I'm hoping, I don't know. I don't want to say that though, because women can be just as difficult as men, and vice versa. Men can be just as difficult. If a male who's not also as knowledgeable of polyamory, and I say, oh, here's John and Omar, they're going to be like, hey, no, are you kidding? So yes and no, I'd say. But if you were to, I guess, ask someone who isn't as knowledgeable with this love style, maybe they would have a more definitive answer. What would you say your opinion is? Which would be easier?
Are you asking me personally?
Like, just out of experience, which is do you feel more easiest to accept that experience or find it?
Well, I think like you say, it's such a nuanced thing. Like, there's so many, everybody's different, right? But when I think about I'm thinking about how you can't read yourself into this, into this lifestyle or this love style. And I'm thinking about when I think about all the books that I've read, but that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean anything. I think if this is just such a generic way to put it, but when I think about women, or like feminine energy, because I realize that, guys can be this way too. But when I think about like the openness and the lovingness of feminine energy, I feel like the approach to polyamory can come from a more respectful and like conducive to a real relationship, with multiple people. When I think about men or masculine energy, not that it's not possible, but I feel like there's more of a conquering aspect to the male energy. And that could be sexual conquest, or in my case, it was more about internal conquest. And that, I think, if you're not careful, can be destructive. I don't think can be, but is destructive. Maybe in a positive way if you do conquer your ego, and it does actually add to your life and the lives of those around you, but it could also turn ugly and make you, maybe come up against something that you didn't realize had more power over you, or was not as surmountable as you might once thought. And then that can, of course, cast itself out into this group of people that you supposedly care about. Right. So it sounds like that's, I don't know if that makes any sense, but,
well, you just reminded me, because I'm looking at my books. You read Sex at Dawn, so there's also The Moral Animal by Robert Wright, and I guess in that sense, yes, I'll send you his book. They talk about the theories of it's easier for women to find a man, and you would say, I guess I could connect it to the dominance conquering aspect, where a rich man with more resources, safety, and that's healthy looking would get more women than the man who's poor, no resources or security. Yeah. So in that aspect, a man with many women is seen, I'd say, more often than a woman with many men. It's weird, but very interesting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so there are so many layers to unpeel, and it's so difficult to think that we understand it all, but it's fun. It's fun to explore and learn about.
It is. And, to tie it back to, I want to be mindful of your time too, because I know we're coming.
I have all day.
Here. Okay.
I'm free, I got no job.
Well, you tell me when you've had enough. Be like, hey, Taylor, this is that we're good. But you reminded me of what you started speaking about at the start, which was your passion to this, right? The idea of bringing these kinds of conversations to the place where we need them most, which is starting with openness, but being able to speak about it at the dinner table, if with your family, whether that's with your significant other and just making sure that they understand you and you understand them, or whether it's with your children if they're going through adolescence, or whatever the community setting is, just feeling free to express yourself about this. It's so interesting because, the cliche that everyone talks about is that it's, if you shoot a bunch of people on TV in a movie, it's rated like, PG-13. But if you show a nipple, it's rated R.
Strange. I know.
do you have any feelings about why that might be? Why we're so open to, like when you think about, graphic, like both of these are graphic, or you could make the argument that they're both graphic, but one seems to be, it's definitely generative. It's definitely positive. Everybody wants more of it. And the other is destructive, and nobody wants more of it really in real life. But we're
choosing one over the other.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you have any ideas about that or thoughts on that?
Gosh, I would have to go back to it possibly being fear and religion. There are a lot more people of my words, Christianity base, in which so sex is very sacred. It is. It's very beautiful. However, the way I feel the Bible speaks of it, and how Christians, any religion, I'm not calling anything out, I'm just seeing and perceiving as what I understand.
Mm.
They see it as only one person is deserving of that.
Mm.
Only one. And the rest of the people, yes, love them, but they'll never be just as great as this one person.
Yeah.
To me, that's conditional. To others, it may not be. Sex is sacred with any person you choose to lie with, whether they be gay, whether they be transgender, intersexed, whether they be of religious descent, doesn't matter their ethnicity. It's sacred no matter what, whether it be a one-night stand. Sure, it's very, oh my goodness, it's just a one-night stand. But that moment in time with that other person, whether it's multiple or one, should always be sacred.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be because we're still very strict on what we believe love should look like and be. And the fear behind showing a human body would incite something in another. And so I think fear, the lack of education within human sexuality, politics, and religion behind the reasons why we choose to maybe see violence over human sexuality. Because I don't know. That one is very difficult in itself. I don't know why we do a lot of things, but here we are.
Yeah, that's fair. So,
but it does. It's the Western culture is all about the human body. We sell it. It's on billboards. It's in magazines. It's very sexualized. Our culture is very sexualized.
Very much so.
In a way that's unhealthy. Yeah. Right. So again, Europe, that's all there. But I think because it's talked about, the power and fear is taken away.
Yeah.
And that's what we're lacking here is because there's no conversation, there's power and fear within it. So as long as we're not talking about it, I think it's going to remain with those emotions behind it and the intentions behind it being just as bad, being fearful and taking away someone's power. So it is very strange because violence is really scary. It's a very death and guns and gore. Yes, it happens in real life. We have wars. I mean, shit, we need to talk about that too. We don't talk about anything. We just kind of go about our days. Because like you had mentioned, everything is seen and that I hear about polyamory and practice should be in all aspects of our life. We shouldn't just be at the dinner table talking only about sex, but about everything. And sure, maybe some people are, and it's about politics, but what about your vulnerability? I mean, how deep can you get with your grandfather? How open can you be with your neighbor? So in all aspects, not just human sexuality, but what you believe, can a Christian sit down with a atheist and have a beautiful conversation without hating each other and go on about their days, still respecting each other unconditionally? That is what I find important, and have it radiate through all aspects of life, not just human sexuality. So there's so much we have to change in so little time.
You
know, and patience is another big one. Patience is huge. So patience and understanding. And if there's no understanding, then be patient until there is understanding. Yeah, exactly.
What's your cat's name?
Nubby. He has no tail. He's a minx, but he's an orange tabby. I'd grab him, but he's a little cutie. I've had him since I was 11.
Oh wow!
Yes, I'm 28 now, so he's an old timer.
Yeah,
my little chunk of monk.
Looks healthy.
My little fat boy. Yeah.
There's like a through line through all of that, which is this repression, whether it's repression of healthy sexuality, and it shows up as, we end up selling it back to ourselves through billboards or beauty products or movies or whatever. But also, like you said, a Christian being able to sit down with an atheist, there's the meaningful conversation doesn't come from the label that they have or the belief that they have, because that's just, it's the conduit to which they both try best to express themselves, like their authentic selves. For one person, they grew up in a Christian household. Christianity is a part of their life, and that's the avenue that they know best in order to express their most authentic self and unbridled. They're able to do that. An atheist, the same way. They look at the world just slightly differently, but obviously there's going to be there's situations that they've encountered in their life that will, the wounds that they have throughout life that will change their view. But at their core, they want the best for themselves and the people that they have around them. Those two things are identical. The things with which they express them, the way that of which they express them, is different. But by viewing the other as our adversary, whether it's through religion or geopolitics or whatever, that's a way of repressing that core truth. And then, that we do want the best for each other, that we do want the best for ourselves. And then it just ends up turning into the toxic shadow version of that, which is, casting our wounds and casting the things that we hate most about the world onto the people that are directly in front of us that ultimately have nothing to do with it.
It's true. And everyone is valid in their emotion that they feel. Right.
Yeah.
And the way they grew up. It's just learning how to better express it in a safe manner. And I like how you said that though, where, people grow up and where they learn to properly express themselves is through the lens they were given as a child. So I had something else to say, but I forgot. But keep going. I'm gonna listen to you.
No, that's all I have. To go back to your, I want to say, I don't want to say schooling, but I don't have any other way. Like, it's your pursuit, right? Like this isn't just a school for you. Like you said, you started this in elementary school.
In life.
Yeah. There's something inside of you that's drawing you, and your compulsion to do this work. When you started out on that journey, when you transitioned from business school to psychology and have this vision of working in sexology and being a sex therapist, what are some of the biggest aha moments that you've had on that journey? What are some of those lenses that you talked about just a second ago? What are some lenses that maybe they haven't changed entirely, but they've shifted a little bit? The perspective's changed since starting this work.
It gave me freedom, a lot of freedom. And it's because I took its fear away. I'm not by no means, when I say this, saying that your orientation is a choice. For me, as I began to learn more about human sexuality, I began to question why heterosexuality. So maybe for myself, in my experience, I began to question heterosexuality and why I practiced it and what it meant to me. And as I did that, I realized, well, I love women too. I haven't had the chance to date someone who is transitioning. But when I ask myself, okay, well, I love men, I love women, could I love a transgender person? Yeah, I just began to continually ask myself questions. So it gave me the freedom to kind of self-discover who I am. And that continues, because then I began to question, all right, well, what type of experimenting do I like? Instead of just penetration of my orifices, I began to discover BDSM, bondage, and a lot of sensory play, electrostimulation, food, essential oils while being blinded, taking away my hearing by putting in earplugs and having someone play with me. All sorts of doors opened up for me because I began to question what I was raised upon and found so much more about myself than I probably would have if I didn't explore human sexuality. Who knows? Maybe I would have. I believe human sexuality opened a lot of doors for me and will continue to. And because again, learning about it, I found out about ethical non-monogamy, and I was like, well, why monogamy for me? And I went down another rabbit hole, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go. Here's some more questions. So yeah, it opened myself to a ton of different lifestyles, love styles, way of behaving. It liberated me from a shell. Maybe it didn't even it liberated me. It also allowed me to create upon a different foundation, or a foundation that was already there, just undiscovered. It's interesting. So yeah.
There's I get my quotes wrong all the time. I think it was John Locke who talked about freedom and said that, like, you can't know what freedom is until it's been infringed upon, right? Because if your freedoms have never been infringed upon, then you're truly free, right? Like you're it's only when someone tries to exert themselves on those freedoms that you realize that you had freedom and you want it back. And what you mentioned there is there's a parallel there, which is, for most people, we grow up with this concept of what sexuality is, how it's expressed, and we don't even really realize that there is this shell of where it all exists inside until you do ask questions for whatever reason, however questions start to arise. And then you can start to realize that, if we're using freedom as the analogy, if sexual freedom is something that, people are born with, however that ends up being for them, you might not even realize that you're not a sexually liberated person unless you start to ask questions about the confines in which you grew up. You didn't even realize those confines began or were there to begin with. But like you say, through this work of human sexuality and work through psychology degree, you can start to see that there was a perimeter that you were in and explore around it to see. And that doesn't mean that you have to, or not that you don't have to explore the whole place, but that you have to resonate with everything that exists beyond those borders. But to know that they're there and be able to try them out to see if they're a fit for you is pretty cool.
To see that they exist. And I recall what I wanted to touch upon. We're very privileged. Although I am a multiracial person, I look white, and that in itself allows me certain privileges. However, in different countries, women can't speak about human sexuality. It's a privilege. So to explore human sexuality, as with anything, unfortunately, some people have more of a privilege than others. If I were to have been born in a different country, I may have been murdered. And even here, homosexuality, violence can ensue if you happen to be born in a family that does not respect, does not understand, and is willing to ostracize you if you are homosexual or even transgender.
Yeah.
And so it is a privilege to have that liberation, unfortunately. And it's sad. And I wish that wasn't a thing. Like everything, race with ageism, because ageism is a thing where you lose your job at 50 and you can't find another because your resume says you're 50 or you're old. There's just so many things that we all are conditioned to have that conditional respect and conditional love for people. But I suppose without the craziness, without the negativity, me and one of my friends were speaking about this, without the tragedy, would there be any expansion to see what needs to be changed? But then why any of that anyways? Can't everything just be perfect?
But then you said in your work with polyamory, in your experience with polyamory, one of the beautiful, bittersweet things about it is that it teaches you where your edges are, but you don't know what they are until you cross them. And it's funny that you bring up something that reminds me of is when I was in California, I was dating this girl and as things do, they end. And, but she was a little different. Like I'd never really opened my heart up, before that. Right. And so when she and I parted ways, it was a new experience for me. And Pat actually, he lent me a book of his father gave him called Conversations with God. And it's,
I've heard of it.
yeah, it's an interesting book. It's one of those books where, you either love it or, well, I shouldn't say you love it or hate it. I would say that you take it too literally, or you choose to interpret it however you wish, because, because there's truth in that book. And it's just that truth is guised in, theology of some sort. But anyhow, one of the main themes in that book is this idea of contrast, that, that book taught me a lot, and contrast is the biggest thing, and it shows up everywhere in life. To know the good, you must also know the bad. To experience the good, you must also experience the bad, because without the other, the one could not exist. And so, progression towards a society where everybody has the ability to pursue the things that are the deepest in, their deepest calling, or the things that bring them the most joy, is a worthwhile endeavor, and one that we should pursue. But currently, that not being the case, you can still give the people who aren't able to express themselves the way that you're able to, your heart can go out to those people, but it can also help you see how sweet the fruit is that you have to be able to, to enjoy that. It gives you contrast, and does help with that whole idea of gratitude for what you have. I find anyways.
It's true. Yes. It makes you very gracious of the opportunities and the experiences one is able to have. I need to read that book, because that's already come to me twice now. I've seen it, did a little back cover, and now you mention it. It looks like a very good book. So you enjoyed it then very much.
Yeah, I read it to cover. It's a bigger book, and I've read it cover to cover in a very short time, because mostly because I needed to distract myself during that time. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting book, and I think the thing about it's one of those books where when you read it, the author was communicating something, but I think more importantly, the people each individual who reads it is communicating something back to themselves. I think that's how that book works. It's not so much about what the book is trying to say. I think it's what already exists in you, or the things that you already believe in some way, shape, or form. And the way that it delivers it back to you, I think, is the power of that book.
Wow. Okay. I like that a lot, because when reading the reviews, people had the opinion about the book and what the author was trying to say. Yeah. But that was a great review, sir. Thank you. I'm going to take it.
Well, just for context, for anybody who's listening or watching, the whole idea behind that book, Conversation with God, is this guy wrote a book, and it's like a dialogue. It's a conversation between he and a voice or something that he was hearing in his head that he interpreted to be God. And that's, I think, where a lot of the controversy comes from, because if you take it literally that he was conversing with, the big man in the sky, you can either look at it as blasphemy. Yeah, exactly. It's Sky Daddy. You can either look at it as blasphemy, or you can look at it as total bananas, crazy stuff. But if you instead just say, this is a guy who wrote a really meaningful book, and I'm going to interpret it however it feels best for me, I think that's where the actual, the benefit of that book comes from.
Yes. Nice. I like that. Oh, life, such good times and such sad, but also it's all great. We're all supposed to be where we're meant to be.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there's a question that I normally ask about people who are on Instagram, but you recently got rid of your Instagram. You took a break from Instagram, which I think is one of the healthiest things anybody can do, especially these days. But the question usually goes, that people who are on Instagram or have fallen on Instagram are often misunderstood, right? You put out pictures, you put out posts, and while you are able to make really interesting connections with people around the world, the version of yourself that exists on there isn't the whole version of you. So my question is usually, how are you misunderstood, and what would you like more people to know about you? But I think most people are going to know you from this conversation that know you because you haven't been on Instagram for a month or so. So how are you often misunderstood, whether it's, in your around your friend circle or in your immediate surroundings or on social media, whatever calls to you? And how do you wish what do you wish more people knew or understood about you?
I believe people perceive me as possibly a very serious person through Instagram, possibly one who thinks she knows it all, which I do not. One who maybe very simple, because for a while I stopped posting in-depth articles and thoughts of human sexuality, so potentially narcissistic. I don't know. I'm sure many things people perceive me as. What I would love to be seen as, though I have no control of that, as a bubbly person, someone who's I'm gross. I don't mind picking my nose. I don't mind I'll fart on the first date or friendship, whoever. I'm just human. I do things that are considered gross. And I also think it helps maybe liven up the room, because people are so rigid. They're so rigid and so fearful of what people may think. So I'm very fun. I love spontaneity. I love being outdoors. I love camping and being away from the phone as much as I may look to be on it through social media. I enjoy a lot of outdoorsy things. I don't mind being dirty. I don't mind smelling. I'm a dork. I really love connection, and I enjoy finding out who people are past the career, past the materialism, past all the things that don't matter. I really enjoy in-depth connection where the fear is gone, where walls are down, where you can feel somebody energetically and hear their vulnerability. I'm definitely not what Instagram portrays, but who is, So if you meet me on the streets, don't be afraid to say hello. I might be in sweats. My hair may be unbrushed. I might have food on my face. I don't know.
Just came back from a camping trip.
Yes, I just got back from Anza Desert.
Yeah, love it. I have a last question for you on that idea about vulnerability, because I think that's at the heart of sexuality, right? There's nothing that I can think of that's more vulnerable than sex with another human being. Your want for sexuality, for it to be open to expression, open to conversation, for people to be able to for it to be a positive thing in people's lives, requires that a level of vulnerability that a lot of people have a hard time with. What if you were going to leave someone with suggestions or insights or ideas, or just an invitation to move into that next level of vulnerability for themselves, or to explore that deeper connection with their their current partner or partners, or the ones that are going to be coming down the road for them? What would you say to that person?
I suppose, as cliche as it is, follow your heart. Don't give up your true self, but also be sure to cross those boundaries to know maybe there's another true self on the other side of that line you just crossed. Because as human beings, we change so quickly and unknowingly how fast things change within the self. I'm not going to be this Channing maybe even 4 or 5 months from now, let alone 15 years from now. So to keep coming back, keep checking in, keep an open line of communication with yourself, and follow your heart. Always be brave. I literally just spoke with a woman who's 87, maybe 90. Her name is Mary Swan. And I asked her, what advice, right? Any young adult probably asks any elderly, any wise person. And she said, be brave, especially how she mentioned with women. Women are always told to be careful, to watch out, to keep safe. And she said, no, be brave, be sensible, but be brave. And I really loved that because, again, that's where you have to take the fear away. Fear prevents people from doing a lot of things. So follow your heart. Be sure it's not led by fear, because then you're following fear, not your heart. And be brave and check in and talk and do your best to be patient and love yourself. There's so many things. That one's the biggest one.
That's fantastic. Well, beautifully said. I appreciate you, Channing. Thank you again for checking out this episode of the Power Plant Body Podcast. If you enjoyed it, I'd be grateful if you left it a rating and review. When you leave it a rating and review, it really helps because it lets iTunes know, and they'll be more likely to promote it to others who could also benefit from hearing these conversations. Feel free to share this episode with people who could also benefit from Channing's insights into human sexuality and relationships. You can check out Channing on Instagram with her handle, that's at Channing Renee, at ChanningRenee. But Channing is also involved in a charity organization called Solidaridad, like Solidaridad, but with soul at the top. This is an organization that helps immigrant workers find work in their community. You can check out her work with the organization by heading over to at solidaridad.socal on Instagram, that's at SOULIDAD.SOCAL, and at Solidaridad on Twitter and TikTok, that's at SOULIDARIDAD, and Facebook.com/Solidaridad. They also have a ton of links and ways to help that you can view by going to Linktree/Solidaridad. That's again spelled SOULIDARIDAD. Don't forget to head over to powerplantbuddy.com/free tools to get your hands on a free copy of the Go Wheel PDF, along with tons of other free tools. I'm regularly adding new resources to that page to help you create the best version of yourself, so you'll definitely want to bookmark it. You can find me on Instagram, that's at The Vegan Trainer, at TheVeganTrainer, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes. Thanks so much for spending some time with Channing and I today, and I'll see you in the next episode.